Hello and thank you for watching another one of my videos. Today we're going to replace the front wheel on a 2016 BMW GS. So the first thing we're going to do is loosen up the axle bolt, and then we are going to loosen the pinch bolts on each front fork. Now please note that the front wheel is kind of wobbling around as I'm working on it. Your front wheel is going to be touching the ground. This bike is a buddy of mine, and he was on his way for a long trip, and he wanted some new tires. He's got about 200 pounds of gear sitting on the pylon right now. So being the bike's on the center stand, it's got all that weight on the rear wheel holding the front end up. It was very convenient for me to work on the bike without needing anything to lift the front end off, so good for me. Anyway, once we get our pinch bolts loosened, we want to take out our caliper bolts, lay them down on the ground on the side of the bike. When you watch me take the caliper off, what I do is once I remove those bolts, I grab a hold of that caliper and I give it just a little twist, just enough twist to separate the brake pads, and this allows that caliper to slide right off the rotor freely, and it'll allow me to put the caliper back onto the rotor just as easily. And if you find yourself working on a sport bike where you have very narrow clearances between the caliper and the wheel because the brake rotor is so huge, this will also help if you just twist that caliper a little bit just to widen out that gap between the brake pads so it slides right off the rotor. Again, right now you'll be able to see I just grab a hold of it and I just give it just a little squeeze right there, and then the caliper slides right off the rotor, and then you're pretty much home free. With your axle bolt on the right hand side, what I do is spin it out a little bit and I hit it with the palm of my hand, do it again, hit it with the palm of my hand, and then I'm able to just get a good grasp on the axle and slide it out, and then the wheel just drops to the ground. So there you have it, the wheel's off. Roll it out of the way. We put some new tires on it. New tires are ready to go. Now we need to clean this axle off. So I found this really great stuff. It's called Freeall. I bought it online from Amazon, and it's a penetrating oil. The stuff is amazing. It doesn't leave any residue like WD-40 does, but you just spray it on and it just wipes the old grease and grime and dirt right away. And then I put on a new coat of just a light coat of marine grease, just like a graphite based marine grease, and I just spread that thin coat around the entire axle. And what this is going to do is make the axle easy to slide out for the next guy that takes the bike apart. Alright, so now we're ready to throw this thing back together. We pick up our wheel and we're going to roll it into the front forks. I'm cleaning out where the seal is also, and there's some spacers that fit in around those seals. So what I like to do is wipe down those spacers and then put a little bit of grease on the actual rubber seal, and that'll allow those seals to last a little bit longer anyway. So that spacer goes on the left hand side. We're going to roll it into place, and then we just lift the wheel up, kind of line it up, stick our axle in. A lot of times I'll just hang the axle out of the fork, that way I have two hands free to get that wheel up in the air. But once we get that wheel up and lined up, and we can shove that axle through pretty easy. This is just kind of an awkward task. Another trick I do is I'll put my foot underneath the front tire and prop the wheel up with my foot. But once we get it lined up, you see how easy the axle goes through. So with the axle in, I'm going to go ahead and put the axle nut in. And I'm going to tighten it down. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the torque on it now with the bike up in the air. So our goal is to tighten down this axle bolt. We're going to put our calipers on. We're going to torque the axle. We're going to torque the axle bolt. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put the calipers on. We're going to torque those bolts, and then we're going to bounce around the front end a little bit. And what that kind of does is lines everything up, and then we will torque down our pinch bolts. So there you go. There's a torque axle bolt. Now let's start working on our calipers. We're just going to throw our calipers on. You see how easy they slide on? So right now we're just tightening down these caliper bolts. We're just going to get them snug, and then we're going to send them the rest of the way home with the torque wrench. And I know what you guys are thinking. Hey, I watched this video so I could get the torque specs. Well, I'm going to apologize straight up. I don't normally give torque specs in my videos, and I normally don't post torque specs online. The torque specs for this bike are easily found in the owner's manual. This is a 2016 bike. It's 2016 right now, so I'm pretty sure that you bought this bike new, so you should have an owner's manual. So just go to the torque specs section of the book, and they're all listed for you. So use whatever torque spec is in your manual. You know, I might give you torque specs on this 2016 model, and the 2017 model might be pretty close to the same bike, but for some reason BMW might have changed the torque specs from year to year. So that's kind of why I don't give torque specs on any of the bikes, because sometimes they have the tendency to change, unless it's a Harley Davidson, and then you could be doing, you know, some stupid bolt and the torque specs are 30 to 50 foot-pounds, because I don't even think Harley Davidson knows what a freaking torque spec is. So now our calipers are torqued down. So now I've got the guy that owns the bike, and he's actually sitting on the bike right now trying to balance it. But as you can tell, with 200 pounds sitting on the back seat, his 200-pound body just is having all kinds of problems getting the front end down. But the front end's pretty much in alignment. It's pretty good, but it's one of those things the manual says, you know, bounce up and down on the forks before you torque down your pinch bolts. So, you know, yeah, we did it. Just it's suffice. You're not going to run into any issues if you don't bounce up and down on the front end of your bike. So again, we're finishing up with the torque on the pinch bolts, and the job will be done. And then remember, as soon as you get the bike all put back together, go ahead and squeeze the brake lever a few times to get those calipers to grab on the brake rotor. So this is my video. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.